If you're receiving this transmission, then you have successfully deciphered the network podcast. Hello and welcome back. I'm Andy, aka EscoBlades, one of your hosts and community developers on Assassin's Creed Initiates. I'm joined as always by my co-host and fellow Initiates comdev, Steven, aka Sick-Steeny. How are you doing?
Not too bad, sir. Thanks for asking. I try my best not to fanboy out with today's guest, but I'll try my best.
And we have guest host and senior comdev and the best beard in the business, Gabe Graziati.
Hello. I'm not sure if I can live up to that introduction.
And last but definitely not least, we have some special guests with us on this episode. We're extremely excited to have two powerhouses. We've got Amber Goldfarb, who did the voice, excellent voice of Aveline, the Grandpre in Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation and Liberation HD. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And we have Tristan de Lalla, who many of you will know as Adewale from Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and Freedom Cry DLC, but was also Agate in the aforementioned Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation and Liberation HD. Welcome.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
Good. So, should be a good podcast. We put out the call for questions to the community, and of course, when they saw both those names, a lot of them just freaked out. So there's some community questions we'll throw to you at some point during the podcast. But yeah, we're just going to get straight into the conversation. And obviously, having the both of you on is great because it's a liberation-themed podcast. So those are the themes we're going to be discussing. I'll start by saying that I thought both the games really spoke to a lot more about the periods of time that they were setting. I thought that was really great to see, especially as these are themes that aren't always, or they're not very, they're not all that explored in video games, in the medium. So it was really great to see that was. I wanted to get sort of like both of your reactions as to how, that was for you, especially when you were first introduced to that. So we'll start with you, Amber. When you found out that you were going to be doing Aveline for Liberation, just give us a bit of a rundown of how it felt for you, and sort of like, did you find it really daunting or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I felt many things. At first, I was extremely excited to have the opportunity to portray such an incredible role. I was also really happy to see that there was finally a female protagonist in the Assassin's Creed series, and also that she was of mixed heritage. I thought that was really wonderful. So tackling a few of the, problems in the industry, in my opinion, with one role. So that was great. Definitely people will criticize the fact that they cast an actress who's not of, Black background. I am of very mixed heritage in other ways, but I know that I know they auditioned a lot of people for the role, and they liked the qualities and the different layers that I brought to the character, and I think that they really were colorblind in that sense. They wanted to choose the voice that did justice to the way they imagined, to the way that, the creatives behind the team imagined her voice. So I felt, because of that, I felt a huge responsibility to do justice to it myself, It's funny, I keep saying justice, and that's something that is so core to Aveline as a character. But yeah, so I felt privileged, and I felt like it was a really big responsibility as well.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned it, because we spoke about this in an earlier podcast a while ago, but it did come up. A few outlets, questioned why, there's this female, protagonist of mixed heritage, but it's black. Why is a white woman playing, a black character? But like I said, I think by the time your performance, came out for everyone to see, that quickly kind of died down. So
well, that's it, and I hope that there are a lot of times when it can happen the other way, where it's colorblind casting. That's the thing with voice work and working in games, is that you can transcend ethnicity, you can transcend gender, because it's, if you believe it and if it seems truthful, that's what matters, right? So I really hope that it goes both ways, that it's not a one-sided thing.
Yeah. What about you, Tristan? Same sort of thing. With Adewale.
A lot of the same reaction when when news finally came through that yes, it's happening, yes, you're booked, you got the role, the content itself made my mind do backflips, because I'm like, wow, we're going into it finally. And even though it's a game, and a lot of the the details, the gory, gruesome details of what actually might have happened don't fully get explored, it's definitely 10 steps forward in terms of introducing an audience who might not think about these types of topics to this in a platform that they're familiar with in playing these games.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I find that I was really proud of. I mean, not even looking at it from the standpoint of an employee at Ubisoft, but just in general as a gamer, seeing this ground being tread that had, obviously been previously explored, but like even further, with not only just the game but the DLC as well. It's great to see, and like I've always said, hopefully it's a stepping stone, and it's proof that it can be done, and it can be done well. So,
kind of building from there, one of the things that I think is one of the strengths of the Assassin's Creed series is that we've always tended to put the focus on periods of history that are not covered in other games, or really very much in other media like movies or television. So moving from Assassin's Creed 3 to focus on Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, and then also with Freedom Cry, both of these games put the spotlight on slavery, and I felt like they kind of take that subject head on and don't really flinch away from portraying it in a way that really puts the gamer at the center of that experience. So I would be curious to know, how do you feel that those themes, like, what was there any concern when dealing with that theme that it would come off as exploitative? Or I guess I'll ask Amber first, if because Liberations definitely like deals with the themes of slavery and that discussion a lot. Was it a concern that whether or not you could do that subject justice?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they were quite tame with how deep they went into the subject of slavery. Although the game is around it, we don't deal with really hard issues necessarily. I think that when I started working on the game, I didn't know where it was going, right? Because the writing as you go, and so I was wondering how deep we would delve into certain issues. And I think that in many ways it was quite safe, but I understand it is a game and it's not a social commentary, you know what I mean? And it's not a film where you can explore all of these different characters. So I think that with the size of the game, I mean, it was made for the Vita initially, right? So it was a small game, and I think that for the size of the game, it showed quite a bit. But yeah, definitely, I think that was a concern for the whole team off the get-go.
Tristan, what was your experience like? Because Freedom Cry gets a little bit deeper into it, like, well, maybe not even a little bit, like a lot. I was talking to Esco about this the other day. Spoiler alert, firstly, but Freedom Cry, once you get to sequence 8, like, I stopped playing. I had to, because I'm like, this is way too real. And I had to really stop and think about what I just pressed X to do. You know what I mean? It's one thing to think about all these things happening. It's another thing to feel like you're a part of it, where you get to try to free people and save people, knowing that you can't. I think a lot of the tone of both games, Liberation and Freedom Cry, have a lot to do with how the story is told as well. The score, the music, the score of Liberation is, I find it very somber, but it's almost like this is weird. It's almost like when your mother makes apple pie. It's that kind of. It sounds like how that smells, if that makes any sense.
I think I get
it. But it's like this home feeling of like this warmth, but it's sad at the same time. Whereas Freedom Cry, it sounds like this badass, like it's like Hollywood type of
like the score is so what's the word? Epic. It's like a.
There's a lot more drums.
There's a lot more drums.
You know, they really tap
like
into
the full
sort
orchestra.
of,
The way it comes
yeah.
in Freedom Cry is really intense and frequent. And so every time you're about to do something, you feel like the orchestra is setting up right behind you, and it makes you feel the weight of what you're about to do in a whole different way. But they both are really impactful.
In general, I find the scores for the Assassin's Creed games are just incredible.
They always have been, and I think that adds to, and it's a question that's come up in that whether video games are a medium that can deliver such stories. You know, can we use video games to tell these stories? Can they be serious enough to deliver the message? And I think a combination of things, and the music being one, and obviously the writing as well, but obviously the performance, both of you, in the respective games, come together to be able to really deliver something. And it's like, a lot of people can go, yeah, it's a video game, but it's like playing Liberation and playing Freedom Cry. There are moments where you think this isn't a video game. This is way more than, it makes you stop and think. And I think that's, I think that's fantastic.
And it's a fine balance for the writers too, where the cinematic scenes have to obviously, inform the player of what they need to do next and what their next mission is, but also tell the story and be captivating. And, so it's a fine balance. If the scenes are too long, then the player can get bored, but if they're too short, then it can leave you, like feeling like you were cheated in a way, so it really is a fine balance.
And on that, like, it's a huge credit goes to Jill Murray, who wrote both of them. Because she's really great at finding that nuance of telling a story, but keeping it so that you're empathetic to what's happening and you want to know more, but at the same time, you don't because it's hard, but you have to because it's your mission. So Jill is amazing. Love you, Jill.
Absolutely. And Richard Fares also, who co-wrote Liberation with her, they're a phenomenal team. And they really wanted to bring as much depth to the story as they could. Like, that was very, clear.
Yeah, I was surprised because it did feel to me like when I was playing that it was like a different perspective on things that I had only heard about, right? Like things that you are taught in history class or something like that, where you've heard about it, but this was that much closer to living it, to experiencing it. And I'll go ahead and gild the lily. I think the voice work was definitely part of that, right? Like to put you in that moment. So congratulations.
Thank
to you.
Thank you. I think it was also great that there was a female-male team to write it. I think that's really cool when you get both perspectives. It really adds more layers to the story, and there is a different sort of sensibility that a woman can bring to a script oftentimes. So I find that when you've seen those combinations, usually it works out pretty well.
Especially, well, actually, I can't say that. Spoilers. Yeah, I won't say what I was about to say. So no. Play Liberation
I
HD.
take that back.
It's good. Get all the way
Didn't
through.
say anything.
Yeah, it's good.
I will jump in and say, especially in Amber's case, I mean, we've just we did a podcast with you, Tristan, with Luma. So, I mean, I mentioned it on there. But in Amber's case, especially, Aveline dons the three personas that you can have in game, right? And I noticed it from very early on. It might be subtle to some people, but the difference in voice work when you're the lady persona, when you're the assassin persona, because as the assassin persona, she's confident and she's like, okay, like you don't want this. And then there's the lady persona. It's all really sweet, and I think a lot of those scenes were with the father figure, but I noticed that difference, and I just thought that just adds to the whole. We're really gushing here.
No, well, you know what? That was one of the most fun things to play, was having that. When they showed me, when I first found out I got the role, and then I got to see, the sketches of Aveline, and they showed me, her different personae, and that was so exciting that was already work that they had put into the game, and that it was so important to them. A lot of times as actors, we have to go home and find those layers, but that was fundamental to the game. and they needed me to find the subtleties of the different characters. So I had so much fun doing that and finding that.
Well, I suppose that would kind of naturally progress into the area of Aveline being the first female protagonist in the Assassin's Creed franchise. But also, an issue I want to touch on is how clear Jill Murray is in communicating that although Aveline is a woman, it should not be her defining characteristic. It's almost one of her, it's almost part of her arsenal to make her who she is, but it is not her defining character. And especially in the video games industry, it's so hard to find a human character, not somebody who's just a female or a woman. I've often seen articles written about how can you write such a powerful female character, and Jill has always been one to say, well, it's more difficult to write a human character, somebody with flaws and who is believable and who people can relate to. So how hard is that to bring to life? So although Aveline is a woman and she's our first female protagonist in the series, there was also that kind of intent to address that, but also make it not be her defining characteristic.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a gift when that's already in the writing, because sometimes you're handed a script and it's so clearly, there's so many traps. It's like the damsel in distress, or you can see so many stereotypes and how women are often written. I think a good gauge of seeing if it's a really well-written human character is when the gender is almost irrelevant. Obviously, there's certain things that are inherent to gender and to different sexes and birth and children, and all these different things that play a huge role. But when you take Aveline, you can look at her, and if you were to imagine her as a man, the story still works completely. And I think that that's a good gauge because, like I said, there are traps when writing for a woman. And although you have to be aware of the differences, it's not necessary to play into that. It's more about finding the humanity of the role. And we all have, there's universal human things that, regardless of gender, regardless of sex, we all experience. And if you can tap into that as a writer, as a performer, then everyone who plays the game or who watches, if it's a show or film or whatever, will be able to identify with that character. So those human elements are essential. And I mean, that was written in. It didn't matter for me, like, her gender wasn't an issue. This is a person, this is a human being who was surrounded by injustice and couldn't just sit and watch, needed to do something, felt compelled to do something.
And if I could add on that, I would love to see, if Aveline's gender was not female, like if the character was male in that lady persona with that amazing green dress on with the parasol, that would be 10 times 10 steps forward in gaming. I'm sorry.
Okay, you got me there. With the lady, it gets a little bit more complicated, but that's really cool. That's why, coming back to how you can don the lady or the assassin, that's what's so cool, is because I think it's especially in the assassin mode where it's like male, female, no difference. But then what's cool is that the lady persona tackles head on the fact that women do have, certain guiles they can use that are, that are different than how, men can have charm and all these things. But there is a certain quality that women can have to
men are weak.
To get what they want.
Men are weak.
But I think that speaks to as well the fact that I think the sort of bigger picture is that, like, regardless of what role a woman should take at any particular point in time, she has strengths that she can use to her advantage to get the job done, right? It's like if you're in the lady persona, you're not useless. Mm-hmm. You can still get stuff done, and Aveline got stuff done.
Absolutely.
In the lady persona, right?
And that's not the only way she got things done. And now that I'm thinking about it, if I were to imagine a man doing that, I mean, it would work. Being charming, using humor, of course. Like,
well, even her father is a good example. You can almost look at the personas as split up more by class than by by necessarily dress. I mean, because the lady persona would be, you know, considered like a dandy, right? Like Aveline's father is, of course, very like well-to-do, dresses very nicely, and he has his own arsenal of kind of things that he could bring to bear in that scenario. I think what makes Aveline special is that she transitions between all of them so easily, and like a chameleon can just become any of those things, right? And yet has such a strong character herself. Like you never really wonder who she is. She's always telling you.
And, you know, those social norms of the time, of that period, were so crucial. You know, when she's a lady, how she behaves and the etiquette and everything like that is so essential to a functioning society. You know, those expectations and how you react and, you know, that whole etiquette. There's so many expectations in terms of how a woman should behave, so she knew how to play that to her advantage.
But all of those things added together to make a totally believable character. Like I remember the first time I played Liberation, the whole female woman thing was actually a non-issue. Although I was expecting it to be, I didn't think I could relate to the character as well as I had with previous male characters in the series. But it was immediately a non-issue for me. I saw the decisions Aveline was making. I saw the mistakes she was making, and that same thing, that she was a human and she was just as able to make these mistakes and persevere as any male character. So her gender became a non-issue for me as a man, and I think a lot of the fan base felt the very same way. So I think that was a fantastic job by both the writing staff and Amber for your performance.
Thank you.
Now, Tristan, one thing that's particularly close to my heart is obviously, and again, props to your performance, but I wanted to find out from you how you feel maybe your recent roles. I know there are other people, we're focusing on you, but I know there are other people who are making strides in that department, but how you feel your recent roles might be a beacon to the industry in terms of, you know, getting more minority characters out there.
You said
as
beacon?
protectors. Yeah, beacon.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like Lord of the Rings. Beacon. Well, I'll share this anecdote. I was reading. I try to stay away from the comments because don't read the comments. But sometimes I'm just too damn curious, and it's fun because why not, right? So I'm reading the comments of this one article on this one video, and this kid goes in talking about how, as a young black kid, he's never imagined that he could play a game where he can see something like this, and he actually wants to make games. And so this gave him so much hope. I think he was 14 or 15, and just reading that, I was like, wow, this is doing much more than we realize what it's doing. And it's planting seeds in minds that is allowing them to think. If you don't see yourself in, like Whoopi Goldberg said one time in an interview about doing Star Trek, she goes, I had needed to do that to show the world that black people are in the future. Otherwise, they wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, and it sounds small, but it's not. It's huge. And so I'm not, obviously, I don't know about Beacon or all that, but I do acknowledge the power that, as a gamer of color, if you see yourself on the screen, you can relate to it. And that goes for everything in life, right? And that it is, going back on what you guys were just talking about with Aveline as well, I think her gender also should be celebrated. That, yes, she is a woman doing this. And it's not just, oh, she's just a human. No, she's a woman. And that should be celebrated, and not taken away from the fact that she is a strong person, but she's a woman. And they look like what they look like, and their gender is what it is. And that should also be acknowledged because yeah.
Absolutely.
And I feel as well, because a lot of people, the one thing that bristles me a little bit is a lot of people seem to say, or a lot of people have said that, you know, it's like that there's not much difference between Agate and Adewale. And I'm like, there's a world of difference. Like, those two characters aren't even.
Who said that? Pull up the file.
What's the number? I'm gonna call him.
You know, and so again, I think it speaks to the fact that, you know, you can look at characters of color, or you can look at minority characters, however you want to look at it, and it's like they can occupy whatever role, you know, given it's, you know, we occupy completely different roles in real life, it can be the same in video games, given that, you know, the writing and the performance all complement each
What
other.
Amber said off the top, like I've been in games where I have voiced characters that are not black. That happens all the time. Actors who do voices, these are fictitious animated characters that have voices, and people can make noise with their mouths that then, you know, like when I see people mad online, like, oh man, I can't believe they did, like, you're mad at a animated character. Why? What did he do? Like, what did he take from your day? But there's so much to be said about the power of like when I'm doing theater, or when I'm doing TV or film, or commercials or whatever, whenever people ask me, oh, what does it feel to play this black character? I'm like, I'm not playing a black character. I'm playing a character. Like, I am black. I don't play black. Everything I do will always be black because that's part of who I am. I'm not apologetic for it, and it doesn't need to be talked about all the time, but at the same time, acknowledge it. So to be like, oh, I don't even see color. You don't see me, really? Oh, because I see you. So, and that's okay. We should see each other, and that's a beautiful thing because we are different, and that should be celebrated and not just put under one big blanket of, well, we're all human. Sometimes I get where that's coming from, but at the same time, it's important to acknowledge difference and embrace it and love it, and then grow together.
It feels almost to me like levels of acceptance, right? Like there are people who are at a stage in their life where, you know, in order to get along, need to see everyone as human and start from there, right? But then once you're at that position where, you know, you're aware of the fact that, you know, people are not that different, you can start noticing the differences and celebrating them, right? I think that's one of the great things about introducing diversity of any kind into video games, because we are dealing with an audience that, you know, may not be used to consuming that kind of entertainment. And so to introduce that diversity and to give them these examples of all these different kinds of people being different kinds of people, I think that's hugely positive.
It's good actually that you mentioned that, because there were some community questions. Our community obviously love stuff like this. They love the opportunity to interact with people like yourselves outside of social media and Tumblr. We'll put a few questions to you. The first one's for Amber, and it's from Immortal Avenger on the Initiates forums. And he asks, how did you prepare yourself to voice Aveline, since she's completely different from yourself from a cultural perspective?
Well, I'm a cultural mutt. My background is very, very mixed. So growing up, I didn't feel like I belonged to one specific ethnic group, or I didn't have a strong sense of, oh, this is my cultural identity. You know, I grew up in a small town until I was about 13, and you know, my mom is Argentinian, so you know, she spoke Spanish, and my dad was Anglophone, but the town was predominantly French, and so all of that, it just, growing up, my parents taught me to value people for who they are, and not where they come from, not what the color of their skin is, and the place I lived was very, very, very racist and very prejudiced. So my upbringing came to a huge clash when I went to school, and I, you know, was confronted with racism and saw it happening. And so that awareness as a child stayed with me, obviously. You know, it really impacted me. And as an actor, I think that anytime you approach a role, it's important to be able to just completely empathize with that character and understand where they're coming from and what their state of mind is. And even if they may appear unlikable, or, you know, we have to play terrible people sometimes as actors, but we can't judge them to play them. We have to understand where they're coming from. And so the reason I'm saying this is because regardless of my cultural background, that doesn't matter when I step into Aveline's shoes. It's about where she's coming from. And as I said earlier, at the core of who she is, she's surrounded by injustice. She is a minority, and she sees that injustice around her, and she knows it's wrong, and she knows that she needs to stand up and do something. And I was able to completely identify with that, because I feel like that about all the injustice around me in all levels, you know, as a human being, simply. So that was the main thing to prepare for her.
We've also got another community question from one of our initiate envoys, Shadow Marcuse, and he wants to know from both of you guys, how and what did you study to get in character and get the best out of your voice performance? Did you receive reference material from Ubisoft? And how free were you in creating the characters and bringing them to life?
Liberation had a different process from Freedom Cry and Black Flag. For Liberation, I did work with a dialect person, Julia Lenardin, for some of the dialect work. We had to decide where Agate was from, in terms of geographically, on the huge continent that is Africa. People be like, oh, he's African. Okay, but from where? So once that was established, we got that vocal work done. For Adewale, my whole family's Trinidadian. I'm Trinidadian, so the work was done at home 20 years ago. Pretty much.
I also worked with Julia Lenardin, and she's wonderful. That was really important to find the right accent for Aveline, and you know, we spoke about it quite a bit, and we did research, because I wasn't sure if my accent should be more influenced by my mother, I as Aveline, or more by my father. And we agreed, because my mother, you know, disappeared when I was quite young, that it would make spoiler. Not really though, because that's established early on.
It happens like within the first
exactly. So
chase the chicken, then your mom
But so we decided that it made more sense if I spoke with a French accent, because my father was French and my stepmother was French, and I was mostly raised by them, so I didn't have an accent that would have been influenced by my mother. It wasn't just the dialect. The question was about in general, how to prepare. Oh yeah, and how much leeway we had. The creative team had done a lot of work in advance when I got there. You know, like I said, they showed me the sketches and they showed me the different personae. So I got a really good sense of what was needed from that to fulfill the role. And in terms of what I brought, they were open to what I brought to it, and it was just, you know, scene by scene. I went with my instincts about each scene, and they gave me adjustments as we went along, and it was a very collaborative process.
Mm-hmm. Lots of freedom in terms of playing with the way things sound and how they might be phrased. There's always a rehearsal process before we shoot in the mocap studio. And for Black Flag, for instance, Darby McDevitt, amazing writer. Darby was really open to a lot of ideas, and I introduced him to this great old Trinidadian dictionary, which he had a lot of fun with, incorporating a lot of phrases and words, and we had a blast.
Amazing.
We've got one from another of our envoys, Nonderi Gold, and it's for Tristan. He says, do you favor one character over the other?
Yes. No. Yes, I favor Ezio over Altair.
Oh.
No.
The war incoming.
No, I did not say that. Do I favor? I don't know if it's favoritism, but definitely Adewale gets a lot of love, and he was created from a lot of love. So yeah, that's my man.
Well, and there was more to explore, I think, with Adewale.
Way
too,
more to explore.
right?
I love Agate. He's a lot of history as well, but Adewale is the dude.
So we have one more community question from Esfantol555, who's to both of you. Ask, what was your relationship with Assassin's Creed before you each performed in your respective games? Had you played them before? And after working on them, were you more interested in the series? So, Tristan, you can start with this one.
Yes. Since the inception, I have been a huge AC fan myself, and I've played all of them. All of them. and I love Embers. It's so good. And after since working on them, yes, things are very exciting now, and that's what I can say.
OG assassin. What about you?
Well, for me, the first time that I heard of Assassin's Creed was when I auditioned for the web series or the series of shorts called Lineage, that were like a precursor to Assassin's Creed 2. And then off of that audition, I ended up booking the role of Cristina Vespucci, Ezio's lover, in 2 and also mostly in Brotherhood. And I didn't know that. So there you go, a little bit of information.
I was waiting for that to come out. So it's like, 'cause the hardcore fans, no, they were like, she was Christina, say it.
Yeah, I was Christina, and so and working on it, I was like, I hope one day they make a game with a female protagonist. But I never thought it was going to be me. So that was pretty cool, I gotta say.
It's cool. When we were at Montreal Comic-Con together, and a fan came up to you, Amber, with the encyclopedia, and he already had like 2 of your signatures, and he was like, can you sign this though? And then he had like Aveline poster, and it was just like, this guy's been following you like forever.
Yeah.
It's amazing. But yeah, you're deep in the Brotherhood, long time. I'll say as well, I'm a huge multiplayer fanatic. I'm still waiting to beat EscoBlades and all these, and Loomer and Wingspan and all these guys in a match, but in time. But I love the multiplayer aspect of the game as well, because for me, that's what, once you finish a single mission, the single player missions, the multiplayer just keeps evolving and keeps you going, and it's never the same. Every match is completely different depending on who you're playing with and the characters and everything. It's dope.
Thank you for answering those. Community always love putting the questions to you. I'm sure they will get in touch on social media to ask. I did want to bring up one thing before we sign off, and this is kind of a plug for Initiates. It is an Initiates podcast, so I'm allowed to do it. But we do currently have a little feature on the site called Letters to the Dead, which you might be interested if you don't know already, which is sort of letters from Adewale's grandson. Spoiler alert. So Adewale has a grandson, and he's writing these letters sort of like with a retrospective, and he really wants to please his grandpapa. And so, if you haven't checked those out on Initiates, you should definitely do so, because they've been written really well. And Adewale's grandson's name is Esiosa, which is follows in the sort of tradition, because Adewale is a traditional Yoruba name, Nigerian. Esiosa is also a traditional Nigerian name. So.
For those of you who've played through Freedom Cry, you know how he comes about, probably. So
yeah. We won't go too deep into the spoilers. We did warn people about spoilers.
I read the first one. It's really nice. Yeah.
That's ongoing on Initiates, amongst other things that are on there. And of course, both of the three characters, the 2 characters Tristan plays and the character Amber plays, both have full character dossiers on Initiates, so you can go and learn everything about what they've been up to. All the memories are there. You can check them out.
Yeah, but what about Christina?
Okay, we'll get on.
Claudia has one though, right? Claudia.
We'll bump that up in priority. Christina needs that. Right. But another, it's been a blast. Thank you guys for coming in. At this point, we're gonna do social media plugs and whatnot. So we'll start with Tristan. Where can people find you?
You can find me. My personal website, www.tristandlalla.com. You can find me on Twitter, type in my name. Same on Facebook. And this has been a blast. Thanks you guys for having me. Hope to see thanks all the fans for the community questions and stuff. It's really hope to see all you guys at all the Comic-Cons and PAXs and all that. So.
And Amber, where can people find you and get in touch with you on the internet?
Very easy, ambergoldfarb.com, or on Twitter, just at ambergoldfarb, and Facebook, same thing, Amber Goldfarb. So choose your social media, basically.
Gabe?
Well, Well, we have the traditional Assassin's Creed channels, of course. For the overall brand, you can go to facebook.com/Assassin's Creed. You can hit us up on Twitter at Assassin's Creed. Or if you want to talk to me directly, you can always hit me at UbiGabe, UbiGabe. Yeah, I think that's. I mean, of course, we have Assassin'sCreed.com, where you'll find all the news stories, all the like top line information. So when are the games coming out? You know, how much they cost, all that stuff.
So yeah, and Stephen?
Also, yeah, don't forget to check out acinitiates.com, of course, and our official YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/acinitiates.
Excellent. So, we've come to the end of the podcast. Once again, thank you to all of our guests. And thank you, listeners, for checking out the episodes. As mentioned on social media, for those of you who didn't see the message, this will obviously be uploaded to YouTube. Most of you will probably be watching it there. But we now have a SoundCloud as well, so I guess I can plug that. soundcloud.com/acinitiates. And all of the episodes will be there for free to stream or download, should you wish to do so. And we shall have an iTunes solution coming up very soon, hopefully in time for episode 3. So take care, stay safe, stay vigilant, and keep on watching. Bye for now.